Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rakahakwadash, Barakathom. Shabbat Shalom. This is the brother Ra'aya with another Shabbat lesson. But before I get started, I'm going to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone whom I learned this truth from, and peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. Shabbat Shalom. And I'm going to get straight into it with Job chapter 9 verse 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? And the earth right now, as it says, is given into the hand of the wicked for rulership. And who are the wicked according to the scriptures? This is Malachi chapter 1 verse 4. Whereas Edom saith, and the biblical Edomites are known today as these so-called white people, these Americans, the British, Europeans, Russians, etc., etc. We are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom Yahweh hath indignation forever. The biblical Edomites are the wicked according to the scriptures, the border of wickedness in Malachi 1 verse 4, meaning wherever they set their border, wickedness follows. And since the earth has been given into their hands for this little season of their final rulership, which began with the Renaissance, the earth has been engulfed in wickedness. And because of their rulership, the earth is just waxing worse and worse. As time goes on under the rulership of these Edomites, the air is polluted, the seas are polluted, the lands are polluted, they're strip mined for their resources. You have mass die-offs and extinctions, GMO foods, cell phone and Wi-Fi radiation giving people cancer, these destructive ideologies like feminism, democracy, capitalism, communism, socialism, the alphabet group beginning with LG getting pushed onto the people, polluting and destroying their minds, etc., etc. And as it says in Matthew chapter 24 verse 22, and except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened. If the Most High didn't set up bounds that this Edomite, the wicked, could not pass, no flesh, as it says, would be saved, this planet would be turned into a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland, because not only is this Edomite the wicked according to the scriptures, he's also the man of sin, the son of perdition. This is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. And when we go into the Strongs for the word perdition, it means, it's G68:4, apolia, destroying, utter destruction, of vessels, of perishing, ruin, destruction. So the son of destruction, Esau, Edom's the real Duke Nukem. As it says in Psalms chapter 17 verse 13, the wicked is the sword of the Most High. And what's the only thing a sword is used for? War, death, and destruction. And these Edomites are also the red horse in Revelation chapter 6 verse 4 that was given that great sword to take peace from the earth. Again, as it says in Matthew chapter 24 verse 2, and except those days should be shortened, no flesh would be saved. But there's a silver lining to everything. Again, the Most High set up bounds which this Edomite cannot pass, and we're living in the last seconds of his rulership before he's taken out of power and the rightful rulers of the planet are put back in power, the children of Israel, who are known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans today. And once the children of Israel are ruling in the kingdom of heaven under Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Yahweh being the true name of the Heavenly Father, whom you people ignorantly refer to as God, and Yahawashi being the true name of the Messiah, who you people ignorantly refer to as so-called Jesus Christ. The children of Israel are going to rule this planet through the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahasham Yahawashi, which is the only right way to rule and which leads to life on this earth. But since the wicked are in rulership and they do everything clean contrary to the law, statutes, and commandments, this planet is languishing under their rulership. This is Isaiah chapter 24. I'm going to start at verse 4. The earth mourneth and fadeth away. The world languisheth and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish. And that word haughty means proud. And the proudest people out here are these Edomites. They're even languishing under their own damn rulership, along with these other people that have been puffed up in pride due to this Edomite ruling. Because as it says in Sirach chapter 10, as the king or the ruler is, roughly paraphrasing, so are the people. So the majority of the people on this planet have taken up the mindset of these Edomites, so they're also in that haughty, proud, destructive spirit, destroying the environment because they're following after Esau's practices, and also destroying themselves by living a wicked lifestyle. Verse 5. Well, actually, let me get that word languisheth in the Strongs. It's H535. Amal, to be weak, to droop, to languish, to be exhausted. Verse 5. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof. And as we read in Job chapter 9 verse 24, the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. So under the wicked rulership of these Edomites, the earth has been defiled and languished under it and grown weak under it, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, and broken the everlasting covenant. Like I just said, these Edomites do everything clean contrary to the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai in the scriptures, which you people know as the Bible, as well as the Apocrypha. Hence, why the earth is defiled and languishing, and the haughty people on this planet are languishing as well. And I opened up the video with these verses to preface a couple of articles just showing the state of the earth and people under the rulership of the wicked, the Edomites. And again, as it says in Matthew chapter 24, verse 22, except those days should be shortened, no flesh would be saved. But now I'm going to go to my first article on endoftheamericandream.com, and the title reads, Everything is dying. The earth is languishing, growing weak, feeble, and except those days should be shortened, no flesh should be saved. We are witnessing mass extinctions on an unprecedented scale, but most people don't understand what is happening, because the majority on this people are haughty or proud. They think that just because they can't feel the immediate effects of a lot of things, there's going to be a solution. Life's going to go back to normal. It may be a little bumpy here and there, but we're going to pull through and make things great again, so to speak. But the only thing that's coming is destruction, judgment, and punishment from Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai for all the iniquity you people have been committing on this planet. We were warned that if we stayed on the path that we were on, that we would eventually see mass extinctions all over the globe. Unfortunately, nothing was done, and now it is already happening. The creatures that inhabit our oceans are dying off. The insects are dying off. The birds are dying off. And except those days should be shortened, no flesh would be saved. All around us there is death on a massive scale, but most people don't understand what is taking place. And again, as it says in Revelation chapter 6 verse 4, and I saw another horse which was red, who was given a great sword to take peace from the earth. We all stay, and real quick, when you go to Genesis chapter 27, you'll see that the blessing that Esau Edom was given, besides the fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven. Going back to Job 9 verse 24, with the earth being given into the hands of the wicked, his blessing was also the sword, which to take the fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven with. And how did this Edomite come into rulership? Through mass death, destruction, bloodshed, rape, robbery, and murder. And it still continues unto this very day. We all stay in our own little protected bubbles, and we all keep listening to the corporate media tell us that everything is going to be just fine. But the truth is that everything is not going to be just fine. We are literally destroying the earth and everything in it. The Edomites are mainly destroying the earth and everything in it. since the earth has been given into the hands of the wicked. And like I said a little bit earlier, you do have these other heathen nations following after the same practices of these Edomites because they see that these Edomites got into power through it. But hey, they're only like a monkey. Monkey see, monkey do. If the Israelites were in power, which we're going to be in power again very soon, they would see our practices and follow after them, which would just further benefit life. But since the wicked are in rulership and they're following after those practices, they're helping to instigate the languishing of the earth. I wish that I could get more people to understand the food that we eat, the water that we drink, and the air that we breathe have all become highly toxic. But you don't see the microplastics, the pesticides, or the trace amounts of pharmaceutical drugs, all from Edomite companies and Edomite ideas to create these things that you are constantly ingesting, and so you don't think about them, and that is extremely unfortunate. Our oceans are literally being filled up by billions upon billions upon billions of extremely small bits of plastic, and the damage that these microplastics are causing is truly cataclysmic. And we're going to get to these microplastics and their harmful effects a little later in the video, Aparatazah. As a result of our rampant polluting, approximately 90% of all plankton has now vanished. An Edinburgh-based research team fears plankton, the tiny organisms that sustain life in our oceans, has all but been wiped out after spending 2 years collecting water samples from the Atlantic. The landmark research blames chemical pollution from plastics, farm fertilizers, and pharmaceuticals in the water. Previously, it was thought the amount of plankton had halved since the 1940s. But the evidence gathered by the Scots suggests 90% has now vanished. If there is no plankton, there will be no food chains in our oceans. And without those food chains, most life in our oceans will perish. At this point, we are being warned that humanity will not survive the extinction of most marine plants and animals. Again, if this Edomite were allowed to rule indefinitely, and except those days be shortened, no flesh would be saved. The scientists warn that there are only a few years left before the consequences become catastrophically clear when fish, whales, and dolphins become extinct, with grave implications for the planet. In the report, the researchers from the Global Oceanic Environmental Survey Foundation, GOES, states, an environmental catastrophe is unfolding. We believe humanity could adapt to global warming and extreme weather changes. It is our view that humanity will not survive the extinction of most marine plants and animals. But the vast majority of our food doesn't come from the oceans, so we will be okay, right? I wouldn't count on it, because our insects are rapidly disappearing as well. In fact, biologist David Goulson says that studies have shown that approximately 75% of all insects have been wiped out over the past 50 years. Estimates vary and are imprecise, but it seems likely that insects have declined in abundance by 75% or more since I was 5 years old. The scientific evidence for this grows stronger every year as studies are published describing the collapse of monarch butterfly populations in North America, the demise of woodland and grassland insects in Germany, or the seemingly inexorable contraction of the ranges of bumblebees and hoverflies in the UK. We are dependent on insects in a multitude of various ways. For example, we need them to pollinate many of our most important crops. Bees get a lot of the focus and the attention when it comes to pollination, but there's a whole array of insects that provide that pollination service. In fact, 3/4 of the world's flowering plants and about 1/3 of the world's crops depend on pollinators at some stage. And so it's not just bees. Flies are huge pollinators. That includes the myjas that pollinate the cocoa crop that chocolate comes from, and there are wasps as well. Wasps are major pollinators. Again, another insect that's widely disliked but actually crucial for our environment. Scientists tell us that almost all of the insects will be gone by the end of this century. If that were to happen, would humanity be able to survive? By the way, our birds are going extinct too. According to one study, 30% of all the birds in North America are already gone. North America's birds are dying, declared a man-made epidemic, an Edomite epidemic by a report in Science. Approximately 100 bird species are recognized as endangered or threatened, with some estimates stating that about 30% of North America's bird population has disappeared over the past half century. This amounts to 3 billion birds total. And over the last year and a half or so, a lot of videos were coming out showing that birds that congregated around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 A, B, C, D, E, F, G towers, which were mainly set up during the lockdowns of the Kragamuffin 1-9, have been dying in mass numbers. Another effect of this Edomite's wicked, destructive, defiled rulership. That is extremely alarming, but things are even worse in other parts of the globe. In fact, researchers are warning us that a catastrophic decline of vulture populations on the other side of the planet could cause disease to spread like never before. A catastrophic decline of vulture populations in Africa and Asia is causing alarm among researchers who fear that a cascade effect could lead to the spread of deadly, old, and new diseases, including plague, anthrax, and rabies. And what did Yahushua say in Matthew chapter 24? Nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. If you've got that spiritual eyesight, you can see that we truly are living in the last seconds of these last days. For thousands of years, the birds have been synonymous with death and gluttony. Where the corpse is, vultures will gather. They got that word, I'll say Yahushua is quoted as saying in Matthew 24. Hey, nice to see at least a quoting of a scripture on a website by a purported Christian. But in reality, the birds serve us in ways that we are only just beginning to understand, helping to keep ecosystems and pathogens in check. All of the creatures that live around us matter, even the vultures. Sadly, their numbers have already declined by up to 90% in some parts of Africa. Because of the centuries of bad press, experts say that African vultures have never been a well-funded research area like elephants or rhinos, but work by a handful of naturalists in Kenya offers clues about the consequences of their decline. A paper published earlier this year found that over the last 40 years, vulture numbers have fallen by 88% in Kenya. Some birds of prey, like the auger, buzzard, and long-crested eagle, also plummeted by more than 90%. Of course, we are systematically killing ourselves as well. One recent study discovered that more than 80% of children and adults in the U.S. have glyphosate in their urine. Slovakia. More than 80% of urine samples drawn from children and adults in a U.S. health study contained a weed-killing chemical linked to cancer, a finding scientists have called disturbing and concerning. The report by a unit of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, found that out of 2,310 urine samples taken from a group of Americans intended to be representative of the U.S. population, 1,885 were laced with detectable traces of glyphosate. This is the active ingredient in herbicides sold around the world, including the widely used Roundup brand, and Monsanto, an Edomite company, a U.S. Edomite company, were the creators of Roundup, and Monsanto was also known for creating GMO seeds as well. And Roundup was Monsanto was recently acquired by Bayer, another Edomite company, though German. When you look at all the paper trails to all these different effects going on in the world, they always lead back to a Edomite. Almost a third of the participants were children ranging from 6 to 18. Each year, close to 300 million pounds of glyphosate is used in the United States. We know that it is being sprayed on the food that we eat, but most of us never think about it because we can't see it. And so we keep feeding substances that we know causes cancer to our children on a daily basis. And hey, anybody in their right mind would they wouldn't even be creating things like plastic or herbicides or anything like that. They'd just be following after the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. But anybody in their right mind, if they saw that a chemical or a product they were making was causing cancer, they would stop doing it. But for one, the wicked are in rulership, and they don't give a fuck about anything. They pollute the own air that they breathe and the water that they bathe and drink in. So when it comes to profit, hey, anybody's on the chopping block. But also, again, as it says in Isaiah chapter 24, the haughty people, the proud people, the earth do languish. These people are so proud and fucking stupid that they just don't take any concern to all these horrific things taking place, destroying not just the environment, but themselves as well. But as it says in Psalms chapter 12, I believe verse 8, the wicked walk in every side when the vilest men are exalted, and these Edomites are the ones in the exalted seat right now. So hence, wicked people are walking around on every side, following after the ways and practices of these Edomites. In 2019, a study by the Environmental Working Group revealed that the chemical was present in 17 of 21 oat-based cereal and snack products at levels considered unsafe for children. This was the same year when Shepard co-authored a study linking glyphosate to higher rates of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, another 2019 study, this time by the University of Washington, found that glyphosate exposure greatly increases the risk of cancer. In addition, the World Health Organization also studied glyphosate and determined that it probably causes cancer. Hey, as the title of the article said, everything is dying because the wicked bears rule. Now I'm going to go to my second article, just further documenting the wicked deeds and wicked results, the destructive results of these Edomites being in power. And this is an article also on endoftheamericandream.com. Microplastics are literally everywhere, and they are an existential threat to the future of the human race. And who originally created plastics? Edomites. History will look back on us as the crazy plastic people. We produce approximately 400 million tons of plastic each year, and a great deal of that plastic ends up being discarded in various ways. Over time, the discarded plastic breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces. Once they get small enough, the little bits of plastic become microplastics, and today our planet is being polluted by trillions upon trillions of these microplastics, and the problem becomes worse every year. Total global plastic production is rising at an exponential rate, and that means that the crisis that I am going to describe in this article will continue to get exponentially more severe. At this point, microplastics are literally everywhere. In fact, researchers have found microplastics everywhere they have looked. Richard Thompson, a marine ecologist at the University of Plymouth, UK, coined the term in 2004 to describe plastic particles smaller than 5 millimeters across, after his team found them on British beaches. Scientists have since seen microplastics everywhere they have looked, in deep oceans, in Arctic snow, and Antarctic ice, in shellfish, table salt, drinking water, and beer, and drifting in the air or falling with rain over mountains and cities. One study discovered that 40% of the dust in our homes is now made up of microplastics, and even the rain that falls from the sky is absolutely teeming with microplastics. A new study estimates that more than 1,000 tons of microplastics from the air, equivalent to more than 123 million. Let's read that again. A new study estimates that more than 1,000 tons of microplastics from the air, equivalent to more than 123 million plastic water bottles, rain down onto protected areas in the western U.S. each year. The discovery of the microplastics was a surprise. A research team was analyzing rainwater samples from national parks and wilderness areas across Colorado as part of a pilot study on a new type of field equipment. They were shocked to find that the samples contained microplastics, plastic fragments less than 5 millimeters, 0.2 inches in length, including a rainbow of plastic fibers as well as beads and shards. There's no escape from these tiny bits of plastic. No matter where you get your water from, there will be microplastics in it, and this is true all over the globe. What is not filtered out in treatment plants flows into streams, lakes, and even wells that farmers use to irrigate fruits and vegetables. Studies show up to 28 microplastics in every cubic meter of water in Vietnam's rivers and lakes, which is in the low range when compared to waterways in Indonesia, the Philippines, and China. In the United States, up to 15 particles of microplastics per liter were even found in well water in central Illinois. The soil beneath our feet is also being increasingly saturated with microplastics, and the UN is warning that the future looks bleak for global agriculture if this continues. Global soils are the source of all life on land, but their future looks bleak without action to halt degradation, according to the author of a UN report. A quarter of all animal species on Earth live beneath our feet and provide the nutrients for all food. We are highly dependent on a whole host of creatures that live in the soil, and scientists have found that microplastics cause significant damage to those creatures. Microplastic pollution causes significant damage to populations of soil-dwelling mites, larvae, and other tiny creatures that maintain the fertility of the land, researchers found. The study notes that discarded bags, cups, threads, and other forms of plastic waste are concentrated more in the earth than the oceans, with similarly dire consequences for the abundance of species that live below the surface. Mites, roundworms, springtails, and other forms of microarthropod and nematode are barely visible to the human eye, but they play an essential role in recycling carbon and nitrogen and breaking down organic matter into a form that bacteria can consume. Researchers have also discovered that exposure to plastics has a significant adverse impact on the development and growth of vegetables. They found that exposure to plastics resulted in reduced weight, height, chlorophyll content, and root growth of Arabidopsis thaliana, and a relative of cabbage and broccoli. In this study, the researchers used nanoplastics, which are plastic pieces that are less than 100 nanometers in size. For scale, the novel Cragamuffin 19 measures 60 to 140 nanometers. The full impact of microplastics contamination in agricultural soils, particularly as concentrations increase with time, is unknown. However, studies have shown that microplastics possess physical and chemical characteristics that have the potential to alter soil bulk density, microbial communities, water holding capacity, and other properties that influence plant development. Back in Isaiah 24, verse 4, the earth mourneth and fadeth away, the world languisheth. And again, when we went to that word languisheth, it was to grow weak, feeble, and fadeth away, through many examples, including the use of plastics which lead to microplastics. The haughty people of the earth do languish. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, the wicked whom the earth has been given into the hands of, who do everything clean contrary to the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Even though there is such a high concentration of microplastics in our soil, we have still been able to grow enough food most years. But as our soil becomes even more saturated with microplastics, it is going to become increasingly difficult to do so. On the path that we are on, global famine is inevitable. And also you've got a lot of man-made instances taking place out here, which is going to exacerbate these food shortages and these famines to come. And who's behind them? The elites of the Edomites, such as the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Gettys, DuPonts, Merovingians, Massimos, you name it, who want to create all this chaos so they can bring that order out of it, order wab ko. And the ultimate goal of that is to get you people to take the charagma in Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 to 18, the MARKOFTHEBEAST, which of course is the RFID/NFC, MICROCHIPIMPLANT. It is just a matter of time. And the vast majority of the food that we eat today actually contains high levels of microplastics. Needless to say, that is not good for our health. As much as the idea might be unpalatable, all of our diets now likely include tiny severings of plastic. The places where microplastics and plastic fibers have been found is beginning to read like a supermarket shopping list. Studies have found microplastics, that is, pieces or fibers smaller than 5 millimeters, in food, including tea, salt, seaweed, milk, seafood, honey, sugar, beer, vegetables, and soft drinks. Tap water contains plastic. Bottled water contains even more. Of course, much of our food now comes in plastic containers, and those plastic containers shed microplastics as well. And a lot of that plastic is derived from a toxic, I believe it's an oil derivative called bisphenol A. And a lot of these plastics in water bottles and other plastic containers include phytoestrogens, which lead to a lot of men out here being very effeminate and full of estrogen and weak. Dantu Lee used to microwave his lunch each day in a plastic container, but Lee, an environmental engineer, stopped when he and his colleagues made a disturbing discovery. Plastic food containers shed huge numbers of tiny specks, called microplastics, into hot water. We were shocked, Lee says. Kettles and baby bottles also shed microplastics. Lee and other researchers at Trinity College Dublin reported last October 1st. If parents prepare baby formula by shaking it up in hot water inside a plastic bottle, their infant might end up swallowing more than 1 million microplastic particles each day, the team calculated. Over the past few years, scientists have started to study how microplastics affect human health, and what they have discovered is quite alarming. One study has found that microplastics can latch onto the outer membranes of red blood cells and limit their ability to transport oxygen. In 2022, scientists also discovered that microplastics could breach the blood-brain barrier in mice and negatively impact the microglial cells in the brain. And one study that was conducted less than a year ago actually concluded that exposure to microplastics can actually cause cell death. Now, a first-of-its-kind study published in the Journal of Hazardous Materials found that microplastics can result in cell death at environmentally relevant levels. This is the first time scientists have attempted to quantify the effects of the levels of microplastics on human cells using a statistical analysis of the available published studies. lead author and PhD student at Hull York Medical School, Evangelos Danopoulos, said in a University of York press release, "What we have found is that in toxicology tests, we are seeing reactions including cell death and allergic reactions as potential effects of ingesting or inhaling high levels of microplastics." And with microplastics being in everything and everywhere, people are constantly inhaling these toxic microplastics. Let's see. I guess we can read this. "I know that I have covered an enormous amount of material very rapidly in this article, but this is important. If you get too much plastic in your system, you will die. And because the amount of plastic that we produce each year continues to rise at an exponential rate, the amount of microplastics that you will consume each year will continue to rise. In fact, we are being told that this crisis will continue to intensify even if all plastic production were magically stopped tomorrow." And real quick, of course you'll have some people out there that'll be like, "Oh, well, the Chinese are doing it, these other nations of people are doing it." But look at the history of all these different civilizations and empires on the earth. They, under the different nations of people, the Hamites are the so-called Africans, the Elamites are the so-called East Indians, the Chinese or the Moabites, uh, the Ishmaelites, the so-called Arabs. The earth has never been brought to the state that it is now, where it's on the verge of total collapse. And look who's ruling, these so-called white people, these biblical Edomites. Again, the wicked whom the earth has been given into the hands of. That red horse that was given that great sword to take peace from the earth. So the main culprit are these Edomites. And if you're honest with yourself, you can clearly see that. One thing is clear, the problem will only grow. Almost 400 million tons of plastic are produced each year, a mass projected to more than double by 2050. Even if all plastic production were magically stopped tomorrow, existing plastics in landfills and the environment, a mass estimated at around 5 billion tons, would continue degrading into tiny fragments that are impossible to collect or clean up, constantly raising microplastic levels. Coleman's calls this a plastic time bomb. Just another example of the son of perdition doing what he does best, destroying the earth, making the earth languish under his rulership, defiling the earth. And now I'm going to go to my last article on RT.com. Mars, another Edomite-owned company, sued over toxin in world-famous candy. Suitor claims Skittles contain known toxin that Mars has pledged to phase out 6 years ago. Hey, follow the rainbow, right? U.S. food giant Mars has been challenged by a class action lawsuit alleging that the company's iconic Skittles candies are unfit for human consumption because they contain a known toxin that the company had pledged to remove back in 2016. In a proposed class action filed in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California on Thursday, Janelle Thames said that Skittles were unsafe for consumers due to heightened levels of titanium dioxide, a food additive. According to the lawsuit, titanium dioxide will be banned in the EU next month after the bloc's safety regulator deemed it unsafe due to its ability to change DNA. The action also claimed that the additive, which is used in paint, adhesive, plastics, and roofing materials, can cause DNA, brain, and organ damage, as well as lesions in the liver and kidneys. Real quick, let's go back to that word perdition in the Strongs. Apolia, destroying, utter destruction of vessels. And isn't the human body a vessel? And we've just gone into many examples showing how the vessel of the human body has been continually deteriorated and destroyed under the rulership of this guy right here. Not this guy specifically, but people that look like him, Edomites. A reasonable consumer would expect that Skittles can be safely purchased and consumed as marketed and sold, the complaint said. However, the products are not safe. In 2016, Mars publicly shared its intention to phase out titanium dioxide from its products in the coming years. On Saturday, the company said that the use of titanium dioxide in its products complies with FDA regulations, declining to comment on pending litigation. The European Food Safety Authority announced that titanium dioxide can no longer be considered safe as a food additive in May 2021. In the US, the additive remains legal with the FDA's Code of Federal Regulation, allowing its use for coloring foods generally, i.e., a lot of people are getting money to sweep all these problems under the rug. At the same time, the FDA regulates that the quantity of titanium dioxide must not exceed 1% of the food's weight. The lawsuit seeks unspecified damages for fraud and violations of California consumer protection laws. So this article. But as we can clearly see from all the articles we've gone into in the Shabbat video, all the signs of destruction and problems on the earth, health-wise, environmental-wise, you name it, all lead back to one person, the red man, the Edomite. And it's funny that they've got that old saying, all roads lead to Rome. And like I've been saying throughout the video, if the Most High did not set up bounds which this man could not pass, and then as it says in Matthew chapter 24 verse 22, no flesh would be saved. But all praises to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai that he set up bounds that this Edomite couldn't pass, and he's just about to reach them, and he's about to be taken out of power and be put into slavery. And then the rightful owners of the planet, the children of Israel, are going to rule under the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai in the kingdom of heaven for eternity. Let's get back into these precepts. This is Isaiah chapter 14. I'm going to start at verse 5. Yahweh hath broken the staff of the of the wicked, and the scepter of the rulers, taking these Edomites out of power. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, all these destructive wars that these Edomites have fought ever since they came into power. What did you have? Colonialization, the transatlantic slave trade, World War I, World War II, which saw the use of atomic bombs. You had a lot of those wars in Central and South America, those wars in the Middle East to overthrow sovereign rulers who didn't want to play ball with these Edomites, so the Edomites could set up puppets so that they could rape that nation of its resources. The list goes on and on. He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, putting chemtrails into the sky, all these plastics around here leading to microplastics, these other toxic chemicals, pollutions in the ocean, GMO foods, cell and Wi-Fi radiation, destructive ideologies like capitalism, socialism, communism, feminism, democracy, the alphabet group beginning with LG, is persecuted, and none hindereth. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. As it says in Proverbs chapter 29 verse 2, when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn, but when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. While all these heathen nations are going to go into slavery for the first 1,000 years of the kingdom of heaven, as they see the kingdom of heaven get built up, they're going to see how life is meant to be lived under the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. They're going to have clean air, clean water, clean vegetation, no strip mining of the lands for their resources, animals getting hunted to extinction, no chaos in the household. The man is going to be at the head of the house with the woman and the children being subservient, everything in peace and in order. And after that 1,000 years, they're going to be able to go back to their lands and live at peace, though they're still going to be under our laws, statutes, and commandments. And if they go off, hey, they're going to get punished for it. Verse 8, Yeah, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon saying, since thou art laid down, speaking of the wicked, the Edomite, no fellers come up against us. Hey, these lands no longer getting strip mined for their resources. No more shows like Axemen, where these Edomites cut down trees for sport. And in the law, there are actually trees you can cut down and trees that you're not supposed to cut down because they have beneficial purposes to the environment. But this Edomite doesn't give a good goddamn about anything like that. As I said back in Isaiah 24, the earth is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, and broken the everlasting covenant. This Edomite does everything clean contrary to the law, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. But when he's finally taken out of power, as it said back in verse 7, the whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Not only are the people going to rejoice, but nature itself. Yeah, the fir trees rejoice at thee, saying, since thou art laid down, no feller is come up against us. This is Psalms chapter 96. I'm going to start at verse 10. Say among the heathen, which is exactly what the men of the Lord, the prophets of the Most High, chiefly through GMS or Great Millstone are doing, by going out onto the highways and byways preaching this word, as well as putting up video epistles on the internet, that Yahweh reigneth. The world also shall be established, that it shall not be moved, under the laws, statutes, and commandments of the children of Israel. He shall judge the people righteously through his people, Yasharallah, Israel, enacting the laws, statutes, and commandments. Let the heavens rejoice. No more chemtrails in the first heaven or the regular sky. No more space junk or debris in the second heaven or space. And let the earth be glad. Let the sea roar and the fullness thereof. No sea life like plankton or anything else on the verge of mass extinction. No more pollution getting poured into the oceans, which causes marine life to beach themselves on these shores. Let the field be joyful, and all that is therein, the land and these animals in it, who are no longer getting ravaged by their environments, getting strip mined or destroyed, microplastics getting hunted to extinction or just killed off. Then shall the trees of the wood rejoice, because the feller is not coming up against them anymore. Before Yahweh, for he cometh to judge the earth. He shall judge the world with righteousness, and the people with his truth. And like I said a little bit ago, all these heathen nations are going to go into slavery for 1,000 years. But after that 1,000 years, they're going to be able to go back to their lands and live for peace. But as for the wicked, whom the earth has been given into the hands of, after that 1,000 years, that's going to be all she wrote for you. I'm going to close it out in Revelation 11 verse 18. And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged. And this is speaking of, again, these heathen nations, because when you're, as it says in, I believe, Proverbs 21 verse 16, they that wander out of the way of understanding are in the congregation of the dead. If you don't have the understanding of the law, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, you're in a dead state. And also, 2/3 of our people in the United States of America, as well as the wicked of our people globally, they're in the congregation of the dead, and their time of judgment and rebellion is quickly coming up. And that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, the elect of the Most High, beginning with the 144,000, who are diligently doing everything they can right now to stay in the good graces of their power, Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, so they can hope to be of that elect number, which Abaratazah I am, and have that protective hedge over them, and see salvation from all these destructive calamities of judgment of Jacob's trouble that Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai is quickly bringing to this planet. But here's the point I wanted to hearken in on. And shouldest destroy them that destroy the earth, the wicked, whom the earth has been given into the hands of, the son of perdition, the man of sin, the haughty people that the earth has been defiled and languisheth under, the biblical Edomites, these so-called white people. After that first 1,000 years of the kingdom of heaven, Every single Edomite man, woman, and child, young and old, is going to be gathered up and permanently culled from this planet by fire. And as it said back in Isaiah chapter 14, he that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, and none hindereth. Hey, nobody's going to miss you, Edomites. Hey, once you're taken out of power, and once you're culled from this planet permanently, everybody's going to wake up from this horrific nightmare we've been in for the last 500 or so years. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. As we can clearly see, we're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.